After my Rainbow Six Siege video, my sister gave me the great idea of doing a video on a game I didn't like. My mind immediately went to Shadow of the Colossus. I went online to see how much the remake was, and was disappointed to see it was still selling at around full retail price. The following day, the free PS Plus games for March were announced, and I knew it was a sign. I know I'm treading on sacred ground by saying I don't like Shadow of the Colossus. I know it's regarded as one of the best PS2 games of all time by a lot of people, but I just never liked it. I played the demo back then and I was just bored. I tried it again with the HD remaster on PS3, finished the third Colossus, and same thing, bored. Over the years I keep hearing more and more about how great the game is and why everybody loves it and still looks back at it for how great of a game it is. The remake came out in 2018 and I avoided it like the plague. As far as I knew, the entire game revolved around riding your horse to a part of the map, killing a boss, respawning, and repeating that process. And everything I knew was correct. That's literally the entire game. There's an introductory cutscene followed by 16 colossi to kill, then a final segment followed by a concluding cutscene. That's it. I tried to keep my mind focused on the fact that this is essentially a PS2 game made to look current gen, so therefore it should be treated as such. It should be treated as a 15-year-old game with 15-year-old controls, 15-year-old storytelling, and 15-year-old mechanics. I had to tell myself to ignore how far we had come in the last 15 years, how much animation had improved, how tight controls were now, and how much Red Dead 2 absolutely nailed horse control. But this game came out in 2018, is retailing for just under the cost of any AAA release of today, so I need to review it from that perspective. So, here's my review of Shadow of the Colossus. The objective: you're a nameless hero who has ridden into an ancient temple on a horse carrying a dead girl. You place the girl onto an altar and a mysterious voice asks what you're up to. You explain you are here with the goal of bringing the dead girl back to life. The voice advises you in order to bring the girl back, you need to venture out into this forbidden land and defeat 16 different massive beasts. And then it hands the controls over to you. You're given pretty simple control tutorials along the way and head out to defeat the first Colossus. Your magical sword can be held up to the sun, causing a beam of light to point you in the right direction. Once you arrive, you're greeted by an introductory cutscene of the Colossus and are then tasked with killing the creature. These beasts have weak points on their bodies, and your objective is to scale the creature in order to reach these points, and then thrust your magical sword into them, because apparently killing the last remaining life forces in this sacred land is no big deal when it means having a chance at saving the one you love. Each Colossus tries to offer something different in the way you kill it. Sometimes you need to bait them in for an attack in order to use their body parts as a way up the creature. Sometimes you need to use the environment to help scale the beast, but you will always need to climb to the weak point, stab it a few times, then move to another weak point and stab it till old mate is dead. You're also given access to a bow and arrow, which if anything is only used as a form of attention grabbing, as it does no significant damage to the Colossus and is capped to prevent you from just chilling in the cheap seats taking pot shots at the enemy until it's dead. After each Colossus is killed, you consume its spirit, leveling up, and are then teleported back to the main hub for another quick cutscene about who your next enemy is. You raise your sword, see where you need to go, and get back to it. The next part is probably my biggest issue with the game, the controls and movement in general. Whoever sat down and decided on the horse movement needs a swift kick to the teeth. The horse does not move relative to where your camera is pointing. No, he moves relative to the direction he is facing. It's just not how your brain initially wants things to work. The horse also seems to have a mind of its own, making things even worse. The amount of times I walked into walls, ran into walls, turned in the wrong direction, and just genuinely hated the horse are way too high. Like I said before, I feel like we've just been spoiled by horse controls as of late, so that's why I find it tough. But considering how much of the game is spent on horseback, it's worth mentioning. Between the Colossus fights, you're riding your horse across the map until you get to a point where he can't cross, so you jump off and continue on foot. There is a bit of platforming involved, but it's nothing crazy, and the controls for your character are actually decent, so you shouldn't find yourself running into walls as easily as the horse. Climbing is handled by holding onto R2 for dear life and keeping an eye on the stamina gauge in the bottom right corner. If you have to take your eye off of the gauge, there is a sound cue letting you know when you're about to run out as well. If you manage to make it to a flat surface or platform, you'll be able to let go and regain your energy. This can be a little tricky to maintain, especially during some of the tougher fights where a lot of climbing is involved, but if I'm being honest, I think I only fell off of a Colossus maybe twice throughout the whole game. Some of the fights are tricky for different reasons. Eventually things ramp up and you need to take notice of your surroundings and how you can use this to your advantage. The game does notice if you're taking a while to figure things out, and a vague voice line will trigger to try and point you in the right direction. It took me a long time to figure out some of them, but every time I did get to that point, I would always think, oh, well, of course, those sorts of moments. The game took about 5 hours to play from beginning to end. I am not exaggerating when I say the only reason I played until the end was because I'd heard it was fairly short, and also so I could come at this review knowing I had beaten the game. One of the redeeming qualities this experience was able to provide was the ending. It came practically out of the blue and was poetic enough to not make me completely hate the game. But a good ending to an otherwise average game does not save the sour taste the experience has left. I don't know why people hold this game in such high regard. I mean, at the time of its release on the PS2, maybe people loved it purely for the technical achievement it was. Maybe people enjoyed riding through an empty open land, listening to the wind breeze through your hair, the birds chirping in the distant trees, and the wonder that lay beyond the hills all around you. Whatever the reason people love this game is, I just don't see it. It's boring, repetitive, and controls like an RC car with one wheel.